This is Launch One with Mason Springer. I'm Mason Springer, and today we're joined with Ace Coleman. If you've been in the archery industry the last several years, you've probably heard Ace's name. He is a content creator, I'd say. He's got a podcast of his own, and we might actually end up doing a collab on this episode here. This episode, I'd like to dive into who is Ace, because, Ace, we've only met once or twice in person. Just looking through some of your content, I don't see a ton of, who is Ace. So go ahead and introduce yourself, and where are you from, Ace?
Yeah, so I'm from Paris, Tennessee, near Clarksville. And if you know about Clarksville, that's where they want to have that ASA event at the end of the year for the 60K. So I live an hour and some change from there. So, but yeah. Um, yeah, I basically just, I don't know, got into archery, S30A, right? And I shot like, a bow hunter setup at Covenant Ranch, local S30A team, and did that until I graduated high school. I only did it for a few years, and then shot collegiate ASA, won a collegiate national championship in 3D, won out of the ASA known 50 shooter of the year my senior year in college, and been in the pro class for 3 years now, shooting ASA, a lot of the indoor stuff, and some of the USATs. Got to work on my USAT game. I suck at 50 meter right now, but yeah, that's pretty much where we are now.
Yeah, that sounds great. You've definitely progressed a lot. And going back to like the very beginning, who got you into archery? How'd you come across it? Was it through bow hunting? Was it through, other things?
Yeah. So I didn't hunt at all as a kid. So I just like was one of those like inside kids. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like sports, like a little bit of soccer and basketball. But like what got me into it was I had one friend that was on this archery team and he was doing it. And then there was this girl I met that was also on the same archery team. And basically they were like, hey, you want to try this out? And I was like, sure. So I went to a practice and did not stop going. So, but yeah, and just shot that, and then I got into bow hunting afterwards. So,
Okay, so how's the bow hunting in down where you're from?
well, I don't do it too much. I haven't bow hunted in 2 years. Yeah, I know. Just haven't been out there, but I have all the stuff, whitetail mostly, and then we have a turkey season in the spring. So, it's not bad. I live really close to an area called Land Between the Lakes. I haven't hunted it yet, but a lot of guys come out of state to hunt it. Some nice deer, relatively speaking, in that area. So, but yeah,
Okay, nice. Yeah, so like when you first like went to that first practice, I assume was that like Genesis bows or was
yeah, it
that
was like so with S30A, mostly guys shooting a bow hunting setup, you know, like no Genesis bows. Like we have NAS programs in the bigger cities down here, but in Tennessee, S30A is massive. So
really?
you're going to see a yeah, massive. Um, they're based out of Williamsburg, so but yeah, so Covenant Ranch is really cool. So Covenant Ranch, they actually have a bow hunting kids camp throughout the summertime, and I've done the camp as well. I got pied in the face at the end of it. It was fun, but yeah, basically you will stay a week at a ranch and go bow fishing, learn about hunting. It's very much in the ministry and that sort of thing. So um, yeah, it's very cool. And they just so happened to create an archery team. So
Really?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so that's what were like what was your schedule like then? How often were you shooting? Like was there practices every week, I think you said?
oh yeah, like twice a week, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. So then, when did you make this? I don't know if it's much of a switch, but like when did you start going to other stuff, like getting into the 3D and shooting stuff other than S3DA?
Yeah, dude. So my coach at the time was George Whiteman, and he took me to Foley in 2018. And I have a picture where I met Levi Morgan, and I was like, people were like, "Hey, you should go meet that guy." I was like, "Okay." So I got a picture with him and Stefan Hansen as well. And it's crazy how much I've changed and how much they've changed. in those pictures, but we'll probably show them somewhere. Um, yeah, so I went to that tournament. I shot like, I don't know, a 185, 196 my 2 days, shooting a wrist trap. I was shooting a Pearson bow at the time before Pearson disbanded. And
What model Pearson?
it was the one before the Trust. It's not the X out.
The reason I ask is I started with a Pearson as well. That was my first
Did
bow.
you really?
Yeah,
Dude,
my
I
dad
had a
shot for
Trust.
Pearson.
Yeah.
That's it's funny like that was what that's the bow that my dad shot for many years when he shot competition years ago, but that's kind of what I
Yeah.
started with and then got into actual target, newer
Right.
target stuff, but
Dude, my last like big like at the time I wasn't that good, but I shot a 26x with that, and at the time I was like it was like my first 26x. It's my high score with
with
the
the Pearson.
Trust. Yeah,
Wow.
it was kind of crazy, but yeah, maybe someone will come around and pick up the company and do some stuff with it. It'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure. I have no clue where Pearson's at now or where
Yeah.
where all that went, but I mean, it's I guess that shows, like even it doesn't really matter what the bow is, I would say, and I don't know what year the Trust would have been, but I assume it's a lot more like spongy cam. At least that's what my Pearson was. And then like I went from a Pearson to a Matthews Apex 8 and I shot that for a few months and that was 42-inch axle to axle. I had like a 26.5-inch draw.
Dude, that string angle was like this, dude.
Yes, yeah, my D
Yeah.
loop was super long, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't. A bow is a bow, That's what it comes down to, I think. But
Yeah,
when
definitely.
when did you get another bow? Like what came after the Pearson?
That's a great question, man. So, there was a guy on Facebook who was into roller skating who had this cherry red Prevail 40 for $350. It's like, perfect. I don't care if this is a scam. I'm getting this bow. So I got the bow, and it was too long for me, but I shot it very well at the time. And I took it to Lancaster, first year to Lancaster with it. Yeah. So that was the bow. And then I got an Invicta. And then shot for Hoyt, got another Invicta, the green one, and then got Stratus's officially through Hoyt, and then Matthews now. So the titles.
Yeah,
But yeah,
sweet. Yeah, I mean, I've been through like two real target bows. I shot a PSE Super for several years. That's kind of what got me into target, and then now I'm on
yeah,
to the Concept X. But yeah, I think that well, like we said earlier, bow's a bow. I think you can shoot just about any bow really well, especially today's bows. But yeah, so you said your coach was what was his name?
George Whiteman.
George Whiteman. Okay, and
Yeah,
how long were you learning from him? And like how old were you then?
like 16. So he had a really big influence on me on how to shoot. John Paul Moody as well. He's a guy that is the camp director of Covenant Ranch. So, but on the shooting side, I would say George definitely helped me a ton. Dr. Michael Neal, he helped me a ton as well. He got me my first handheld release at a national tournament.
Okay.
So,
So
grandstand shoot off.
I know I've seen you've shot a wrist strap a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, explain that to me.
Just that one tournament, man. I'm trying it now, and I tried it a little bit. I think I'm going to be running a handheld, a button for Foley. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it worked for really well at that tournament. I did shoot it at a USA archery event, worked okay, and then I shot it for field nationals, and it was okay. It was actually not that bad. My first time, second time to field nationals, first time to that location. So
Okay. And was this all
yeah,
last summer?
yeah.
Okay.
So three tournaments with the wrist strap. It was cool. It's just the anchor. I gotta figure that out with it. It's like even if your peep is centered, you can still miss left and right because there's no solid left and right. It's kind of like parallax on a scope if you don't have your parallax set.
Yeah, I think like the what I picture is if you look at like the top of your hand, like that lump of, soft meat is what is contacting your face, and that's
Yeah,
not super solid. I started out with a wrist strap like I guess a lot of people have, and went to a handheld. I think there's a guy that I shoot with, Scott. He ran a wrist strap for years, and he could always get it to hold steadier than a handheld, and but he just couldn't get the same anchor. I think is kind of like what you're saying.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, um, you got in through S3D8. Now explain that program to me. I've heard of it. I've seen lots of shoots. I've seen, I know people that go to all these S3D8s. What exactly is it? Is it like a youth organization?
Yeah, S30A stands for Scholastic 3D Archery. And basically, for the 3D side, it's bringing ASA to kids in schools and clubs. So you can form a club and still compete in the same tournaments. So they also have indoor, which they do half of a 5 spot NFAA round as their target. So, and then outdoor target as well, which is basically a USA archery face. So they're grabbing from NFAA, USA, ASA to have their shoots. So basically really young, like 10 years old or so, all the way up to high school, middle school divisions as well. The biggest class is going to be bow hunter, as having like a bow hunting compound set up with any release you want, no magnification, short bars, open, and then you have, of course, Olympic, and then you have like bare bow.
Okay. And how like I mean that's how you got into it. You said you're going to the same tournaments, right? As I guess you and I do now. I've seen S3 Day stuff. There's isn't there like a nationals up north somewhere? Maybe I'm thinking wrong. Wisconsin.
Potentially.
I think yeah, a buddy of mine went to a big S3 Day in Wisconsin here about a year ago, I'm thinking. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. I've never there's no S3DA around me that I know of. I'm in Central Ohio. Um
Yeah.
and
Really. That's wild. It's huge in
yeah,
Kentucky. It's
yeah.
huge in Kentucky.
Okay, Kentucky. Yeah,
Um,
I
so
mean,
it kind of spreads out from there.
yeah. As far as I know, there's not any S3 Day teams within an hour or two of me, which is why I guess I don't know a whole lot about it. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I would say the places that have USA or not USA, ASA tournaments are more susceptible to having S3A because the 3D side of it is the biggest side. So
okay. That makes
it's the
sense.
fun part.
Yeah. So and you say ASA. So the long I don't even know what to call it. The tack shoot ASA hybrid is what I'm gonna refer to it as. I guess. What's the real name for that shoot this summer?
That's a great question.
I
I do
don't.
not know.
Yeah. So that shoot, the long range ASA. Like bow hunter type shoot. What is it? 35 inches axle max for the money class. Yeah, I think that's gonna
No
be interesting.
blades.
Yeah, yep, no blades, which is it's good for me. I don't. I've never run a blade. I'm not a blade guy. But um,
Fair enough.
so you plan on attending that? Being so close
Definitely.
to you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's no point like for me to not go. I have a very like I can actually go over there and practice um where they have targets set up. I don't know how the ranges are going to be, but they do have targets set up. So like get a group of guys together and go shoot that a little bit, but definitely. I have a Arc 34 that I think it just shipped today. I got a message, like a tracking number from Matthews today. So I want to get that set up, probably run some form of Excel hunting site on it. QAD, yeah, probably. Um, we'll see. And then those antler ridge bars probably. And then the release probably just my the button, I'm assuming. Arrows, I do not know. Is there a arrow diameter limit?
Well, so I think it says in the rules, if I'm thinking back, the arrow diameter limit is 246.
So it has to be a 246?
Well, when they say diameter limit 246, that would exclude anything bigger than a 4 mil, right? Because the outer diameter of a 4 mil is around 246, I think. But the inner
Yeah.
diameter of like a standard, I think it's no, not 4 mil, 5 mil, I mean. but the outer diameter of a standard is bigger than 246. I don't know exactly what the
I'll just
rules
bring
are.
a bunch of arrows,
Yeah, a bunch of
see
arrows,
what works best.
just hunting arrows, I guess. No
Yeah.
23s or big stuff.
Well, I mean, makes me wonder if they allow like the 4 mil X10, you know.
Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't. I
I
mean,
don't know, I
four
wouldn't
mil.
hunt with that. Some people would.
Yeah. Well, I see the parallel pros. I've seen guys hunting with those. The four
Okay,
mil.
perfect.
But yeah, so I think as long as you stay in the rules, there's always going to be guys pushing it.
Are you,
So
are you shooting it?
yeah, I'm going to try to make it down there. I'm a tack guy, so I shoot a lot of tack shoots, long range stuff, just very similar to this. And
Yeah,
so
perfect.
I saw this. I saw money involved. I'm like, that could be pretty interesting. There's a couple guys from my shop that they shot target years ago and got really into it, and then have been out just this point in their lives, working and doing what else. But then they heard of that shoot, they're like, it's time to get back in it. So they both bought new bows and have been coming in the shop every week and just getting warmed back up to go down to that this summer. But I think it'll be fun. Yeah. So back to who is Ace. What were some of your first big tournaments? I know we were talking 3D. You did some USA archery stuff. Like as far as like first big win or whatever whatever stands out to you.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, like when I was in S30A in high school, I shot bow hunter setup, and at state level, I won like a state tournament. That was like my first halfway decent win. And that was the first year I had a thumb button release, and I was like kind of shooting it right, but I was still kind of like opening my hand to fire the release. Um, I went to an open setup in 2019, and I made the commitment to shoot a hinge. So I got a stand, the blackjack at the time, and learned how to shoot the hinge using the trainer lock pin. So basically dry fire training. So I wouldn't be scared of punching myself in the face. I still managed to punch myself in the face one time with it, but I have that on video as well. Pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um, I was letting it down and just right in my face. It was bad. That season, I won the state championship. I shot a perfect score, basically the equivalent of a 300 on a Vegas face, but a half round of 5 spot all X's, which is a big deal. I think I was one of the first kids to do that in Tennessee. And then that was nice. Then I went to the national tournament. I shot 27X on that face and got third. So that was like kind of like my first big thing there. As far as um, ASA, I was in the ASA with an open set for 3 years before I won, and it was in 2020. I had the Invicta at the time. It was the last event. It was Foley. They moved it to the end of the year, and I went there and I think I shot like 40 up for the weekend, 38 or 40 up, and that was good enough to win.
How many yards were you shooting?
Like 40-yard max.
40-yard max.
So,
That's still a
yeah.
great score for 40-yard max.
Yeah, not too bad. So, but yeah. So those are some of the bigger ones. And then next year I was like, okay, I'm going to shoot an own 45, and I'm in college at the moment. So so what we shot in college. So first I went to Paris, Texas. That was my first ASA of the season that year. I tied for second, and then shooting a hinge, went to London, sucked. I was running large diameter arrows. I went to 23s and a button and practiced with that. And I went to a shoot in Colorado. It was my first time on a plane to be a buddy with this one guy, Daniel Collins, shooting a recurve, and he wanted me to be his partner. So I was like, okay, perfect. We're going to crush this thing. We did. He mostly crushed it. I just was like there for a par score, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that was fun. Then I went to Coleman and I shot super good there. I shot like 20 up the first day, and then I shot 32 up the second day. I shot 17 12s, 2 10s, and 1 8. It was awesome. And then the last one of that season, I got second. I shot like 30 up and 20 up, something like that. So, um, but yeah, next year, basically just last year in the amateur divisions in the ASA, I was the shooter of the year. I won 3 out of 6 events, podiumed five of the events, and then I got like ninth at one of them. I shot five. So, bumped my release or something. But yeah, so here we are. Yeah,
Yeah. So how many years have you been shooting as of now?
it's like 8.
Okay, so not even that long, really.
Picked up my first bow in 2016. I'm pretty sure late 2016, early 2017. First tournament was April 1st, 2017. I shot 100 down with a wrist strap release.
On a 3D
Yeah,
range.
I didn't even know you could move your peep sight. I'm not even kidding. Like I was practicing one day, I'm like, why do I only see half my scope? I'm like, oh, you can move this. Great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, did anybody else in your family ever shoot archery?
My cousin. I have a cousin that shot. He's a big hunter. He shoots everything. Everything. Except for stuff out west, but he's in Colorado at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did he kind of help you get into hunting? I know you said you got into archery or
Oh,
bow
definitely.
hunting. Okay.
Definitely.
I mean,
Yeah, him and my great uncle, which they live in the same town. He has some land, so go out there and shoot a few does. I haven't gotten any really nice bucks um, that are worthy. So if that makes sense, yeah, super patient on that.
yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I started with a really old crossbow when I was little, and then when I finally could pull 40 pounds, I got the compound bow. And I hunted with that for, I think, 2 seasons before, this year when I finally killed my first deer with it. And it was kind of the same deal, like just kept passing buck after buck. But yeah, so,
Yeah, if they're out and about around me, they're pretty dumb, and I should not be shooting them.
yeah, I know what
Like
you mean.
Elliot from Open Season type. I've seen some like Elliot,
Oh, okay. I
if you've
and
seen that
I'm
movie,
I think I have. Is he
the one
small?
antler.
One antler.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Yep, that's
yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So.
Yeah. So, and then all the way into, you're shooting pro now. When did you go pro? What year?
I'm 22, so I won out of known 50 in the ASA. So you have to shoot known pro after that, basically. So yeah,
Okay.
my first year in known pro was a struggle. Second year, I made my first shoot off. Still a struggle. I only made one shoot off, and it was the first term of the year. Like that's very frustrating. So, and then this past year, I made two shoot offs and barely missed one. The one where it got rained out, I was just off the leaderboard by 12.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the requirements for moving up out of, K50 into the pro?
So I don't know what it is today, but you have to, there's like a certain amount of money where if you win it from the ASA, you have to shoot the next class. So I think if you win one and then podium another one, like once or twice, that's usually enough to kick you out. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So, and then once you went pro in the ASA, kind of followed with everything else you do.
yeah, like the NFA stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Lancaster, Vegas. So yeah.
Yeah, so, and I'll ask you this because I tried the same thing last year. I shot known 2 years ago all summer, and then last year I shot a little bit of 3D. I shot a lot of like tack and stuff like that, but I shot a handful of 3D shoots throughout the summer. Went to like Metropolis when we got rained out, and
Oh man.
now Metropolis I did shoot known, but all the rest of it I shot unknown, and I was just trying it out, seeing what it was because I'd never done it before.
Yeah. I definitely want to try it in the IBO. There's a bunch of guys just north of me in Clarksville that do judge, and I would just want to go to their place and learn the game and shoot known in the ASA judge in the IBO. It's such a good opportunity. So
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. And I live 30 minutes north of Nelsonville,
yeah,
in the IBO.
nice.
So I went to that last year, 2 years ago, and that was I think that was my first tournament where I judged, and it actually wasn't too bad. Like I'd never really practiced judging before. Like I don't have a ton of 3D targets at home to judge and practice. I could go to the local range and get a little bit in, but um, I
Yeah,
think that judging is a lot of practice. That's the big part.
yeah. Like with anything, it's half strategy. So having the right strategy and half execution of that strategy. So if you have the right judging strategy that holds up, practice it enough, and then you'll be fine. Talk to Jacob Sluzars a little bit about it, Gillingham, and the consensus is you've got to own the targets and you've got to look at them and you have to judge based upon the target, not the ground, mostly. So that's the only thing I've heard that's remotely important. So
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah, I
see.
agree. Yep, I think that you gotta have the targets or have access to them at your local range or something to practice that way. And that's definitely a big one. But yeah, so this last season, I assume you hit just about all the ASAs. Like Metropolis got rained out. That
Mm,
was pretty wild. And then was it London last year got canceled as well? Yeah. So last year's kind of rough. Hopefully this year's not that bad. I know by the time this gets released, fully would have just be happening or almost happened. So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. What's your plans for competition this year? I mean, are you gonna stick with the 3D? Shoot anything else this summer?
yeah, so just ASA and NFAA mostly. USATs, I'm figuring that out, which ones I'm definitely going to, which ones I'm not, if I'm allowed to not shoot some. But those for sure. The IBO, it's maybe I'll have to plan ahead. I know what the first leg is was in April or May,
I'm
maybe.
not sure.
Yeah, I think it's far enough ahead to where like I could go and be willing to suck a little bit, but I wouldn't be like, amazing at it. But as long as I did it like 3 times a week, something like that.
Yeah, get a little bit under your
Yeah,
belt.
yeah.
So
So
for the
Reading, Vegas,
yeah, yep. So
yeah,
you got going to Vegas this year?
definitely.
Okay, yep, we'll see you
Vegas
there.
is my favorite tournament by
Really?
far.
Yeah, I went
Definitely.
I went for the first time last year and I thought it was great. I know that there was a lot of mixed reviews from people that had gone in the past, but I mean, it was still a great tournament I thought and they say it's going to be a lot better this year even. So, I'm looking forward to that. But
They need to fix this stage, I think. We
how's
need a
that the
bigger stage.
bigger stage? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
like everyone lined up. That's the way I'd like to see it.
Yeah,
You know,
they were shooting top and bottom. I think so.
yeah, like I guess it's fine, but like I don't know. I appreciate from a spectator standpoint seeing all the contestants and then seeing the field all at once. It's kind of hard to track what's going on until it gets down to one line.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I shot on the stage last year in a shoot off in my class, and of course, I think I was shooting in the third place shoot off, so it was a little bit before everything else wasn't super crowded, and I thought it wasn't bad. I know that the lights were really bright,
Yeah,
and it so I was shooting a ring like a stick on ring on my lens,
yeah.
and like it was so bright there, like the target was crystal clear, but the ring was like all fuzzed out from all the light. I don't know exactly what it was.
That's a good point.
I
The
shot
targets
all
were extremely clear,
yeah,
very clear.
yeah. And that's something to plan on if you expect to go to the stage on Vegas is really bright lights. And I heard that they did some, was it renovations on the stage for this year? I was listening to, I don't know if it was a podcast or whatever with Bruce or somebody, and they were talking about
Yeah.
some improvements. So I'm interested to see what that entails. I know it was a little bit rough last year, but as far as the stage
Oh
shoot
yeah.
goes, but I mean,
Yeah,
really,
I have a
it's
picture of the practice bill that they had
yeah,
for us outside.
yeah,
That was fun.
that was fun. Yep.
Yeah.
But still a great tournament though. I mean, it's Vegas, and this year's the what is it, 60th anniversary,
Hmm.
which I learned from Greg Poole that that kind of matches up with
Super
the Super
Bowl.
Bowl. Yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah, I saw that. I thought that was pretty cool, and it's like the Super Bowl of archery too, is what they call it. So
yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
I love Vegas food. Like, it would be cool if there was like some extra things there, like for the amateurs and whatnot. It'd be kind of cool. Like side tournaments. It'd be kind of cool.
yeah, I
That'd
think
be interesting.
Lancaster did the mixed team this year, which was really really cool. I think I'd like to see more of that in the future, like side tournaments like that. I do like how Vegas. I mean, Vegas is Vegas, right? So people are always going to be able to find something to do. But I think that having you shoot your 930 arrows each day, so it breaks it up a little bit. It's not like you shoot all your arrows in one day and you're either done and don't have anything to do for the rest of the weekend. This way you've got. I think it's a great format how they do it.
Absolutely. I think that it gives you time to see and have like a little bit of pressure on you, you know.
Yes. Yeah. And, every day you get a little bit of reset, like 30 arrows. You can go hit the practice range. If you're the guy that likes to change your stabilizer weights and whatever else, you can do that.
I'm like,
Yep, there you go. And yeah,
I don't know, I wasn't too bad with it this year, but
yeah.
I
I
have been.
mean, I've done it a little bit, and if I do change it, it's like an ounce or two, and it's kind of just situational, how jittery I am, or just how my muscles are feeling. But for the most
Yeah,
part,
exactly.
I don't change a whole lot. But yeah, I think that Vegas is a great show. I'm looking forward to it this year. Hopefully, I can shoot a 900. I shot one 300 last year, two eight or two 299s. So it was close. But definitely not bad for my first year. I was really happy
Yeah,
with it.
it's not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah, so looking forward to it. I got 23s on right now. I'm shooting indoor nationals, leaving really early in the morning.
Okay.
As of now, so this
Which 23s?
15s, 23 15s.
Smart guy. Those arrows shoot so good.
Yes. I mean, and I
Very.
had I had my 27s shooting pretty good too, and I picked these up, and it's like I think I put some out on Instagram, and said, do you like 23s or 27s? Like, there's 23s, you're going to get a little bit more of forgiveness, but then 27s, you also got a little bit more line cutting. So I've been trying to mark down any time that I miss a line that I would have caught with 27s. I try to just put a little tally, and it's kind of hard to do, but keep track of that, and then keep track of the shots that felt like they would have been a 10 with a 27, where with a 23 they caught the X. So I'm trying to do a little bit of, I
Yeah.
don't know,
I
study
really
with
want to
it.
shoot some 26 13s and play with them. So I've just
Yes.
got some points in. I just got to get the shafts. So
How do those compare in stiffness to 2712s?
they're like a 290 spine. They're technically less. I don't care what they say. Aluminum tunes weaker than a carbon any day of the week, from what I've noticed. But they are a little bit heavier, but not that much heavier. Probably 12 grains per inch, maybe 11.
And where do you find 2613s?
Lancaster. Yeah, the Eclipse X7.
Clips. Yep. Okay. And do you know how do those compare to the X27s or the X23 as far as the aluminum itself? Like, is there
I
any
do not know.
difference or just
That's
branding?
a great question. I would assume it's about the same material, but I would hope it is.
Yeah.
Hope it would be worse, but
And I
yeah.
do know that they make like 23s and 7s in that Eclipse line too. So I'll have to do some research on that actually. And I would assume aluminum is aluminum, but maybe not.
Yeah. You never know. Just shoot the arrow and see
Yeah,
what I would
absolutely.
do.
So the biggest thing, I switched to aluminum this year for indoor. I went to 2712s. Now I'm running the 23 15s.
You're sold,
What?
aren't you?
Yes, I am sold. And
Same.
I know that. I mean, aluminum's just a far more, from an engineering standpoint, like a far more predictable material. Carbon, there's so many variables with the resin and the weave and
Yeah,
all that.
if you're thinking about shooting aluminum, try it for indoor. It just don't like to miss is the way I describe it. Like if you make a horrendous shot, the arrow does not twist at all. Like I get lots of lefts and rights if I'm not like super spined up well with the carbon shaft. So like the aluminum, it just wants to go straight. That's usually what I've noticed. But
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's kind of what I'm feeling with it too. A little bit heavier, which is all right for indoor. And then point weight. So that's one thing that, I mean, I was all over the place. I had no clue what to do when I was first building these aluminums. Never done it before, and I know that 2712s are going to be. I mean, according to programs like Archer's Advantage and spine charts and stuff, like 2712s are going to be stiff for my 60 pounds 28.5 inch draw. And so I'm like, well, where do I find out what's the most forgiving? Like, I've always run my arrows.
yeah, Archer's Advantage runs a little on the weak side, I would say,
Yeah,
comparatively.
I've
Yeah.
always run my arrows where Archer's Advantage says optimum, or a little bit stiffer, and I've had good success with that with carbon arrows. But then aluminums, I mean, I didn't really know where to start. So like, what's your strategy when choosing point weight, arrow length, stuff like that?
So recently I've done some testing on this, and I personally think that the like as a starting point for most people shooting a target setup, you should just start with your arrow an inch shorter than your draw length, carbon to carbon or end to end. So my arrows are far beyond shorter than that. Mine are um, shorter than my draw length minus the 1.75 figure. So that means the shaft in relation to like the burger hole or the pivot point of my grip is behind that. So I shoot mine pretty short. Even my aluminums, I just swapped to a much shorter aluminum and they fly so fast. Um, and they don't really miss as well. I can add maybe an extra 25 grains of point weight to kind of calm it down. So, but yeah, that's
Really?
the biggest thing I've noticed. Yeah. So
Okay, so
paying
I've.
attention to people that shoot very well, like
Mhm.
Bodie, Kyle, and Matthias. I mean, most people like today, their shaft is inside of the riser at least a little bit. Not everyone's, but yeah.
Yeah, I think my 2712s are cut maybe an eighth inch inside the front of the riser, something like that.
Yeah,
And then how about point weight? Do you play with that adjustable points?
definitely. Definitely. For indoor, absolutely. You know, it's kind of hard on point weight because it is a give and take. So if I am not holding really well, and let's just say I have a lighter bow, and it's like a really fast, twitchy kind of aim. Generally, people in that situation are more amateurish with their setup, so they're going to probably want to add more point weight just to hit tens. So let's just say you're not shooting tens a lot and you're just trying to shoot tens in the beginning, go straight up to 200. But there are times where for me to grab some extra X's, I like to go a little less than 200, depending on the setup. Like 23s, I'll go less than 200 for sure, like 150, 180. And then with my 2712s, I really like 225. I like 200. 250 is really nice when you're like holding your follow through kind of. But if you have like a weak kind of shot, it just wants to hit low, is what I've noticed. 250. So if you're getting a lot of low misses like that, where it's like, did I break? Like you can call your shots and be like, did I break in the middle? Yeah. Why is it low? That's where you lighten up the tip. But if it's like spraying, let's just say you have a pin movement where it's like it's in the middle and it's leaving, and then your arrow hits beyond where you thought your pin was. That's where it's like, okay, you could add some point weight and you'd calm down on your left and right misses. So I try
Okay.
to find the balance there.
And where are you stopping? Like upper end of point weight, lower end of point weight for like 2712s. What's the heaviest that you'll
250. 250 is the absolute heaviest I'll run that I have tested. Like seriously tested. I did shoot this one guy's points. He did a boot camp with me. He had 300s, some of those Smith Bro 300s. And I tried it. I was like, I want to try it out. And like I had to click my sight. I shot it on my bow. Like I had to click my sight down this much from a 200 to a 300 grain point. And
Yes.
I felt it like on release. It was like it had the tendency to want to just dive bomb. So great for left and right resistance, but up and down, it's like it just wants to go low, you know?
So you're kind of
So
finding a balance from up and down misses to side misses, just try to get them, bring
yeah,
them. Okay, that makes sense. And then,
yeah,
okay, and then how about 2315s?
like 180, 170, like that 100 grain point, the screw and weights. That's where I'll start with all this testing. And mine have the 50 grain and a 20 grain screw in a 100 grain point. And those shoot so good. I wish I had a little extra prep before my USA Indoor Nationals. I went. built my arrows like 2 days before I shot. I shot all my rounds the same day.
Okay.
Yeah, this is it's my target on one of the rounds. That was insane.
Yeah. And that's
That's probably some of the best shooting I've done.
what arrow was that? Point
This
weight?
is the 2315 with the I think it's 170 in the
Okay.
nose.
Yep. And how long do you
All
have
pretty
your
short.
23s?
Those are like probably 26 inches. They're a little bit longer than the 27s I have right now. So 26, 26 and a half. But yeah.
Yeah, that's where mine at. My 23 fins are maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches in front of the riser. A little bit longer, but they seem to be shooting good. And I kind of set them up, build them, and only a couple weeks out from this shoot, I'm like, I really don't want to mess with it a ton. So set it up and just shot the bow. But yeah, I think there's definitely more tweaking to be done there. As far as starting point goes, sounds like for 2712s, which is probably what most people are going to be shooting. Cut it off
If
at
you're not shooting it, try it.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
awesome.
Yep, and then building it, you can listen back to that and figure out the specs. But yeah,
Yeah. My personal opinion on aluminum for the guests is if aluminum arrows, if I had like I thank goodness I am partnered with Easton, but if I had to pick an arrow and they were like double the price of what they are now, which they are cheaper than carbons, I would buy them immediately. No questions asked. You know, they're awesome.
yeah, I agree. I mean, Easton, that's pretty much the only aluminum arrow out there, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
I don't know of any other brands that do that.
Yeah. I don't even know. That's a good point.
And there might be some stuff overseas, but I've never really heard of anything.
I
But
haven't.
yeah, so okay. So how about like arrow building process for aluminums? Like where are you going with that? Are you spine aligning stuff like that, or are you just keeping it simple?
Yeah. Some aluminums, they're so straight that you can't even get a reading on a spine testing machine. Like if you have a fresh batch, like some of them, like half of them in a dozen, you can't even, like the needle will barely move. So like how do you find a high side, low side? Carbon arrow, especially 27, 25, you're going to see it, a 23, absolutely. Especially with your more weaker spined arrows. I found with the more weak the spine reading is on a carbon, usually like the greater the high side, low side variance is. Not always, but that's what I've tended to notice. There is a seam that you can see on the outside and inside of an aluminum where it's like a weld.
Yes.
I just lined it up to that. I cut the arrows. I have a D-cut saw. I need to get a LCA Revolution. Personally, I found like that saw, like the blade thing that holds it, you can move it like this. I don't like that. I mean, I'm using it, but yeah. So the mod saw, potentially, I think the mod saw is a little bit better on that. Pretty popular, pretty new. Yeah, I'll cut the arrow. I'll spin it backwards. I won't usually have a knock in, depending on the saw. If it
Hmm.
has a knock receiver, put knocks in, index it to that seam on aluminum, cut the arrow, have the blade to where it's barely sticking out so it doesn't like chop it in half, or the blade might bend, spin it away from you. And then we take it out. Obviously, make sure your blade is straight. When you take the arrow out, like put the arrow tip, like where you cut it, on your finger and spin it to make sure it's relatively straight. If you find that there's a lump in it, something's wrong with the way you cut it or the machine. So square, I use like an old Luminoc fast or like one of those QAD, or not QAD, one of those ASD flips. Who makes that? Leaving
G5,
me.
I thought.
G5, yeah, that's it. Um, yeah, one of those is fine. So square it. I'll go like 5 times on one side, 180 degrees, flip it, feel the end. Okay, it's good. Now, with aluminums, there's going to be like a little bit of like a lip at times where there's like aluminum caved in. So you have to deburr that. There's tools for that where it's like a knife cone thing where you can spin it, or you can use a knife blade. So I'll do that. And then basically something that has a microfiber cloth where you can put it into the shaft and then clean it. with like some isopropyl alcohol, 91%. I'll do that. So super clean. And then I'll use, if I have access to it, the Easton hot melt. It's pretty good. And then just heat it up, heat the point up first, heat that up, put it on, spin it into the arrow. I'll have a nice donut. I'll put it in some cold water for like a minute or so, and then it'll peel off, ready to go. And then I'll fletch it, indexed with the seam. The seam is the stiffest side,
I couldn't
weakest
tell
side.
you.
I think it's the stiffest side. It's hard to tell because it's like, okay, are they removing material or is there extra material still built up? But just index is the same and fletch them all the same. Basically,
Yeah,
is what I'll do.
and I think, with those aluminums, the way that they're drawn out so many times, I mean, you can visibly see the seam, but does it really make any difference? I don't know. I know on the old
It's a great
aluminums,
question.
like the old aluminums, like I'm thinking cobalts. Like my first indoor arrow was a cobalt 2312, and those, like, they had a much more prominent seam than the newer aluminums, and like you would put them in the bathtub and float them.
Yeah,
A lot of guys did this, and you can see the arrow turn, and I can't remember if the seam would always go up or down, but like it was consistent shaft to shaft. So the seam did make a difference. On these new ones, I don't know if it really makes a difference, but as long as it's the same, I think that's the key.
yeah, it's a mental thing, I guess. I haven't actually tried twisting them that much through paper. I did do a video that is on my Instagram about that. When I shoot my arrows through paper, I don't really see a big knot tuning change at my arrow length and draw length. So when you go longer on your arrow, I think that's where you're going to see more of a knot tuning variance. But if you go really short, you're not going to see that big of a difference.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. That makes sense. So, what about like squaring the back end of your arrow? I noticed, like, I was looking at some of my, like, the 2315s when I got them. Like, I just unglued the bushing from factory, like re-squared it, and then glued it back in, seated it all the way. I just like to,
Smart idea.
yeah, I just like to do things myself. It's
Yeah,
convenient that they come, like that from the factory, but I don't know. I like to do things myself. Is that something you do?
probably should try it. I need to. I have not tried it. I probably should. Have you noticed like any like issues with it not being square or at least feeling square?
They all look, if you pull out the rear of the bushing, if I'm remembering correctly, like you can see like saw marks on the back of the shaft, like it was like the
Nice.
back was cut with a saw and not squared, if I'm remembering correctly. And so maybe I'm thinking of the front of the shaft, but I saw, like, when you look at the and you inspect the bushings when it comes from the factory, I think that most of them were square, and I don't know if it was my eyes playing tricks on me, but a couple of them looked a little bit off on the square relative to the bushing. But then the main thing I was seeing was just some of them weren't quite seated all the way. Now the glue
Mm,
that they use on the back is like super tough. It's this black stuff, and it's you got to heat it up really hot to get it out. But
yeah.
once you get it out,
Does
like
it
I
change the color of the shaft?
not that hot, not quite that hot.
Okay, that's good.
But it's a fine line.
Yeah.
You gotta be a little careful with it. But
How do you get those out? Like, are you using pliers?
yeah, I use pliers, and I really don't have the right kind of pliers. Just like a pair of Ipex, if you ever use those, like kind of like a channel lock, and just grab the end of the bushing a little bit, and it will get marred inevitably. But
Yeah.
I don't think that.
I'm going to check when I get to
Yeah,
my indoor stuff next week.
yeah.
I
I mean,
should be shooting my indoor setup this week too, but my indoor bow is my 3D bow at the moment, so waiting on a new
hmm
string from the other one. But
yeah. I mean, I would just
yeah,
recommend pulling them out. Get that, clean all the black glue off. You can use whatever kind of cleaner you have. Make sure it's spotless, and then I just like to re-square it and then re-glue it. I use the same hot melt as my points, Easton hot melt, and I haven't had any issues.
very cool. Well, yeah. Cool. So tournaments for you this year. What are you doing?
I've got some USATs on the schedule. Last spring I think it was, I heard the words compound and Olympics in the same sentence, and my eyes kind of went, that's pretty interesting. So I'm going to hit some USAT stuff, 50 meters. I've shot one. It was the Buckeye Classic last summer, which is only an hour from my house. So that was a great one for me to practice. I got some Pro Tour set up and shot that. I had never really shot in the wind like that before. I'd shot like the most wind I'd ever shot in was at 3D shoots, and there's really not a ton of wind there.
No.
So that was fun. I did a video with Matthias. Matthias gave me some tips on that shooting in the wind, and I basically learned that it just takes practice.
Yep.
And by the end of
Definitely.
the shoot, yeah, by the end of the shoot, I was shooting really good, and I think I took third, which was, I mean, I was super happy with that. It was my first USAT. So this summer, I plan on shooting enough to qualify for the United States archery team, and I'll do that. I mean, I plan on shooting a ton of 50 meter this summer, and then I'm really looking forward to like the ASA bow hunter shoot. I think that's gonna be really fun. I'm still figuring out a bow. Um, I could use my hunting bow. I still hunt with the Matthews Monster. I don't know if you remember that bow, but
Yeah.
it's crazy fast. Like Dad and I both hunt with them. We've got a couple extras that we've bought up just to have in case something ever breaks and you can't fix it. Um, and I just like it because it's so fast at a 7-inch brace height too. So
Right.
I could shoot that. I don't know if I will or not. I might try and find something else to use. Maybe like I was even thinking like a CX-35. Um, but we'll see about that. Once I get a bow lined out, it's in August, so I've got plenty of time. And then I plan on hitting some 3Ds this summer too. I'd like to hit a ASA National or two, maybe London. We'll get some stuff on the schedule for that, but I think it's gonna be a busy
Very cool.
summer. I'm gonna be shooting a lot.
Yeah. Very cool. So, yeah, how does that work for the Olympic tryouts? I didn't read all the rules that just were posted.
I did. I read through them all. It was really hard to comprehend just because I don't have a lot of background knowledge. So a lot of the jargon they were using I was not familiar with. But it sounds to me like they outlined the recurve stuff really well. They've still got all the same individual team. As far as Olympics go for compound, the only event is the mixed team round. So
Right.
it sounds like only a handful of countries will qualify teams for that. I couldn't tell you how many teams it will be. I'm thinking around 6 or 8 is what I'm remembering. And then to qualify to be on your country's mixed team, they posted a series of like qualifier events, and it's basically, I don't know, World Cups, a bunch of world and continental qualifiers. Basically, just the regular shoots for world archery that you would normally attend. Those will also count as a qualifier for the L828 Olympics. I don't know exactly how the selection process occurs. I know that your team or your country has to perform well at those qualifiers. If you make the top 6 or 8 or 10, whatever it was, teams, then your Olympic committee for like in our case the USA, they actually choose the athletes, the two that would be on the mixed team. So in theory, instead of choosing the number one ranked female and male archer in our country, they could decide to go with the number one ranked female and the number two ranked male, or whatever it is. So that decision is up to the Olympic Committee, and it's like is it NOC, National Olympic Committee? I think so. So it's up to your NOC, I think they call it. So that's what I know. I know that these qualifiers and stuff start. I know for recurve, I think it starts in summer of 27, and then actually some of the compound stuff starts late this summer, I believe.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of the rundown of what I know. Like I say, kind of basic understanding. Go read the stuff they just posted in the last couple weeks. And there's been some podcasts done on it too. You can listen to and get the full rundown. But that's the basics.
Fun, fun. So,
It'll be interesting to
okay.
watch. I think that I mean whoever wins that first gold medal on the mixed team, I mean they're going down in history. I think for compound. That's going to be I mean that's a pretty monumental thing. I think for our sport. But I think
Definitely.
yeah, I think it'll be fun. And then I'd like to see it expand too over the next couple Olympic cycles.
They should get indoor in the Winter Olympics. Be kind of cool, maybe.
Yeah, and I don't know how as
It's not
far
too
as
wintry, but
yeah, and the I picture like air pistol. I think most of that's all done indoor. And is that part of the Summer Olympics though? I'm not.
Yeah, it is part of summer. So
So I'm sure they'd keep both disciplines of archery together, but I just like to see it expand into eventually having like an individual category and stuff to that sense. But that'll all come with time, and I think it'll be really cool over the next few years. And you and I are young enough that over the next several cycles we've got a good chance to qualify and run the ringer for all that stuff.
definitely. Yeah. So big thing that I had to change, trying out some flex fletch veins right now, and biggest reason is because of USATs. What veins are you running outside?
I think on my Pro Tours last summer, I'd never set up Pro Tours X10s before, and I was told to run the FFP, was it 175, something like that.
The 187s.
Yes, that's right, 187s.
It's a good
And
vein.
yeah, that's what I was told to do, so that's what I did. And
Smart. I want to try the 225s and the 187s. We'll see.
yeah, I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of vein testing. There's a lot of debate, I think, on veins and controversy almost. What matters in a vein, what doesn't matter, what makes a vein a good vein versus a bad vein. I don't really know. I don't have enough experience actually testing the differences between veins.
That's a great point.
I know a lot of what I run is Q2I just because the bases stick well, and they make a broad range of sizes too. Like they make a inch and a
Definitely.
half, low profile, tiny little vein. Actually, it was my favorite arrow setup. I fletched with those, and that was before I got the Pro Tours last summer. Now the Pro Tours were my favorite arrow setup, but it was with those Q2Is. And then for indoor, I'm running the 4-inch long, high profile Q2I like parabolics. It's the biggest vein I could find, and so that's kind of why I'm running that. But I'm open to different options if I find a good reason to.
Yeah, dude. I started running the 360 on my 27s, and I like them a lot. I think they spin up the shaft really well, and they're not that heavy, only 7 grains. So for that size of a vein, so
That's the thing with the Q2Is is like the 4-inch DVX vein, which is a parabolic, high
yeah,
profile. They're 14 and a half grains per fletch, so you've got an extra 45 grains of weight on the back of the arrow just
right,
in fletching. So that's a factor too. But that's also the biggest vein you can buy, so you kind of have to
right,
expect that a little bit.
exactly. So yeah. Um, so when's your next tournament after this weekend?
After this weekend would probably be I might hit. I always hit local stuff, of course, but the next big one would be Vegas. I'll be on indoor mode until Vegas, and then immediately after Vegas, I'll be switching to outdoor stuff. And I'm gonna try like the field trials this year. I think that'll be really
Yeah,
fun. Get some X10 set up, maybe the new 3.2s, I think.
definitely.
And
400 spine, 400 spine, probably. I mean, maybe
somewhere around there. I think they make a 380 and a 420. I know that
for
was that
the
was. I'm not sure for the 3.2, but I know that's where they were on the Pro Tours.
yeah. I think it's like a 410 X10, and then it's like a 380.
Okay.
Definitely some like 380, and then they go down to like 350 and then 325, which some people have ran those. It's kind of wild, but
Yeah, I mean, I just listened to Cody at Easton. I guess he's always recommended stuff, and there's other guys that I'll get some good info on Aerospine, and I think at least the Pro Tours, being tapered, they were always kind of like the big looms. I really didn't know how to get them to spine right. The traditional ways never really worked, but I'd like to see how these 3.2s, do being a parallel shaft.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, I have some 400s. Haven't touched them yet. I want to get some set up. I want to set up some for. I was going to set up some for the Vegas inside outs, but now we changed the target face. So, what are the details on that?
Yeah, so I just listened to the podcast, and believe it or not, I really don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but in like the last 2 weeks I've listened to
There's a
three or
bunch of good
four.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah, and there's a bunch of good ones, and the one that I listened to was Bruce, and I can't even remember who he was with, maybe George Tekmachov. I listened to they all kind of blended together now, but they were talking about the Vegas shoot and the new rules, and the targets. They posted pictures of the new targets. Basically, you've got the Big Ten, right, which is the classic Vegas 10. That all that stays the same. The only thing that changes on these new targets is the size of the X ring. Instead of trying to score inside out like they did, last year and then at the Rumble this year, they got a lot of negative feedback there, and so they made a change, and I think everybody's agreeing it's for the better. So the change is actually somewhat small, but it is the size of the X ring itself. When they switch from scoring the Big Ten, which I think is only the first or second end in a shoot
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
when they switch to the Little Ten, they'll start off with the standard X ring that they've always used, the 2 centimeter X ring, and they'll do that for X amount of ends. I'm not sure if they've determined a number for that yet, or if it's going to be up to um, the judge or whoever's running the
Yeah.
shoot.
Up to Bruce.
Yeah, up to Bruce. We'll see how that plays out. But then
So is it two different sizes?
three different sizes.
Three, so we have the three new sizes.
Two new sizes, one standard.
Okay.
So three total. So you've got the 2 centimeter X ring, and then you go to, once you've shot a couple ends of the
1.75,
1.5, I thought,
one and a
something like
half.
that.
Okay, and then the new one is the last one is
One is the smallest, I
okay.
think. So you're
Nice.
basically, yeah, it's going down really small. So I think that's good because guys don't have to set up their 3.2s now. You can still shoot the traditional 27s, and I think that makes it a little bit more convenient. But
Yeah.
convenient for the shooters.
Still, I don't think a 27 shoots that good though.
Yes,
You
that
know,
is a good point.
yeah, it's like when it gets down to it, like I don't know, depends.
Yeah, and there's where I think the NFA is good about listening to feedback. That's why they
Are we
made
still
changes
allowed to
this year.
change arrows or no?
I'm sure. I don't know if they'll ever make a rule that says you aren't allowed to change arrows, but
Yeah,
nothing is scored inside out. So it's all just standard scoring. So I'm sure just about everybody's going to stick with their 27s and try to catch those lines. But I think that making it smaller is going to be easier for the spectator, which is big. I know that like last year at Vegas, they're shooting regular X,
a good point.
little 10, little 10, little 10, and then all of a sudden Bruce says, "Okay, we're switching scoring to inside out." And a lot of the spectators, I know there's a lot of confusion there.
Like what the heck is inside out? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
what
good
is
point.
inside out?
Yeah,
There's a lot of confusion there, and I think that's a big reason why they changed it. Because I mean, they have thousands and thousands of viewers that watch the Vegas shoot, and then the clips from the Vegas shoot are assembled years and years later. Like we're still seeing clips from past Vegas shoots being posted, and that's footage that is used and watched for years, and so they're really trying to make it more intuitive, I think. But
yeah,
I think
for
it'll be
sure.
pretty good. Similar to what is it? Is it the Kings or JVD that has the little black dot?
Yeah, JVD for sure.
Yeah, so I think I know there's a lot of positive feedback on that. So I think Vegas will be very similar, and I like how they step it down. They step it down two times. That kind of makes it interesting.
Yeah, that way no one like it would be bad if the tournament just like abruptly ended on one target change. You know?
Yeah, and I mean it's very feasible. I think it's still feasible to catch a 1 centimeter dot. Like I think that these top guys, including yourself, are going to be able to catch these 1 centimeter dots pretty
Yeah,
consistently
we'll see. I
compared
mean,
to the
it's not a
inside
bad
outs.
idea. It's not a bad idea, but like, I mean, some people would would say it would be better to have it where it is just the same X ring and just let them shoot for 5 hours. If it takes 5 hours, it takes 5 hours, you know. That would be very interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a great
But
way
it
to look
is
at it
cool
too.
having it step down. We just don't know how it's going to go,
Was
you
it
know.
last year at the Rumble or 2 years ago? I know there's a shoot off that lasted a long time. Was it Bodie and Matthias? And they were
Yeah,
just back and forth X's, and they went, I can't even remember how many ends without missing an
it
X.
was
But
15 or so, maybe more.
yeah, into the 20s maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah, it was. That's definitely. It's a different way to do it. I think that it'd be great to have at least one tournament that stays like that, where it's just how long can you go without missing. and then I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of opinion on it, and then I guess the only way to really make change is to contact
Yeah,
NFA.
pretty
So
much.
yeah,
Yeah, cool. So, yeah,
yeah. I think that tournaments this year are going to be good. There's new stuff. From the Vegas shoot to the ASA. I think that's going to open. I think this ASA is going to be really interesting. I don't know if you've ever been to a TAC, but
yeah,
yeah, I've been to several TACs, and it's just a totally different atmosphere. I think
completely.
people are not there to they're not there to make money. A big thing with TAC is you've got the huge vendor village, and it's always filling up. So you've got so many vendors there, and I think the reason why the vendors are loving it so much is because the TAC shooters, they go out into the range and they blow up 2 dozen arrows, and they come back, and instead of going to their sponsors saying, "Hey, I need 2 dozen free answers," they lay down a couple $100 and buy more arrows. So the vendors are definitely benefiting a ton from these tax shoots in that sense. Like, I think that they might be, and I'm not sure, but they're definitely liking it, is from what I'm hearing. And you can tell
It's
just
very
by how
awesome.
much they're filling up. And then the vibe is just totally different. I love the vibe of TAC. It's just a bunch of hunters too. So if you're into hunting, then that's really fun. And then the long distance aspect of it is really been good for me. Going from a tack shoot where you're shooting 120 yards back to an ASA where you're shooting 40, 50 yards, it makes it seem a little bit easier.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then like the uphill downhill angles, I learned a ton from tack. Like I can shoot an uphill angle really steep and have no issue now. Where in the past I would have been like, "Whoa, what is this?" So it's really good practice, and then the fact that SA is introducing it, that's going to be really great. I think it's going to open it up to a whole new crowd of people. Like the target side of things. I think it's going to be really interesting, really fun, and great practice for other shoots too.
Yeah, I need to do one. I know there's one in Tennessee. Pennsylvania's got the big one, and then a lot of them, like I've heard Montana is a really good one. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
I've
see.
been to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Utah, Indiana. I think that the best venue is probably Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
with a close second being Michigan, uh, and then maybe Utah. And I think the best courses were probably in Utah. And me being from the east, like I'm just amazed by the mountains and stuff out there too.
definitely.
But yeah, PA is a great one, and it's not too far from you and I, so that's an easy one to hit. But yeah, I think that this will be a good season. I'm looking forward to it and ready to get a ton of reps in.
For sure. So cool.
Awesome. It's about time to wrap this up. I did learn what Ace is, who Ace is, and got your backstory, so that's big. Talk some Vegas and learn a little bit about arrows. That's important too. I think that direction on that was really important for me.
Yeah. Are there any like questions that you have real quick on bow setup? Just like tournament stuff? I mean, anything really.
I mean, I'd say the biggest thing that I'm working on right now is not set. Well, I will say where I'm at right now with my bow is I spent the last couple weeks. I kind of changed everything in my tune and my setup, switching to these 2315s. Like I threw together this concept and it was shooting really good right off the bat, and so I really didn't tinker near as much as I had with my other bow, which kind of surprised me, honestly, because I like to tinker a little bit. But I set it up and I never really changed it. Just shot 27s, shot it really good. I'm like, okay, when I'm switching this arrow setup, I'm going to tinker a little bit. So I, was playing with my tiller tune, my knock height,
Okay. Wow.
my draw length a little bit, D loop length. I'm just trying to get it to hold a little bit better. And it got worse right away just from changing stuff, and then over about a week's time I got it back to probably about the same in the hold as where it was before, but everything is way more centered now. So my timing is
Oh yeah.
dead perfect, my tiller is centered, my knock height is centered, believe it or not.
So Tiller, are you meaning limb bolt adjustment is the same or like the actual measured from the limb to the string?
The limbo adjustment, so I'm like exactly a half turn out from the bottom, or whatever it
Okay.
is.
Very cool.
So, which is kind of odd for me. with my the other bow, the old bow I was shooting, I had the knock height was really high. I was always about a half turn in on my top limb bolt, and that's just where it held the best for me. And then this
The Supra
bow,
is pretty deflex, so
yes,
yeah, trying to get it to point better, I guess, is what you're trying to do. So like it floats too much maybe or it's finicky, I don't know.
I couldn't even tell you what the Super was doing when it was in the center because I'd had it above like center on knock height and tiller for years. But I mean, I set up my concept similar to how I had the Supra, not quite as extreme, and that's where I was running it for months. And then now I'm kind of back where I started, but everything's centered up more, which I like. There's definitely more to be done to it, but I think that I just need to shoot the bow. The main thing that I'm working on right now
It's hard.
is, yeah, it's the main thing I'm working on right now is applying pressure to the cams in a consistent way, in a, I don't know, like a making it hold steady while still increasing tension on the bow until it breaks. Like I know in the past, you know,
Dynamic. It's like something dynamic in the bow, you know.
yeah, and not necessarily the bow. I think it's gonna be me. Is what I'm working on the most. Just trying to get my shoulders set in the right position. I mean, I'm talking like micro tweaks in how I do some things. That's kind of where I'm working on right now. Just trying to, one, of course, you got to have the bow set up to where when you push and pull on it, it doesn't start to shake a lot more. My bow had always done that in the past, and I've kind of helped reduce that a lot. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. This is the meat and potatoes too that people are wanting to watch this podcast for. Definitely. Um, like if you're shooting one of these bows, like I've shot Hoyts a long time. I did shoot the Stratus. Stratus was not the best bow, but the concept, like every issue the Stratus had, the concept basically addressed. They knocked it out of the park. Super good bow, like really good bow. Um, the so like that whole idea about when you start applying pressure, it shakes more. What I've noticed in general with bows is like if you have a really hard wall or a high surface area draw stop, like a Hoyt does, when you start pulling into it, usually, especially if the stop is not perfectly square or if it's super flat, if it's off and not perfectly square, that's where you're going to have pin surges and jerks and stuff like that. Like for the average person, like you can have your draw length off, have that hard back wall, and you're going to hit tens with it. But like one thing I like, at least with the title, and the Matthews draw stops, how it's like a smaller diameter and kind of curved. Like in the beginning, most people don't shoot that really well because their draw length is off by a mile. But if you get your draw length to where you get into it and then kind of pull and align your tensions and stuff and get your draw length absolutely perfect with that, if you're soft on a shot or hard on a shot, because it's so soft of a peg, it won't cause your pin to bounce as much. So that's where you kind of figure out which initial draw length and then almost an end draw length tension wise in the bow. Like it's very subtle. Like what range do you want? How do you want the pen to react under pressure if something slips in your tension? So yeah, and then even then from there, you can go a step forward. How does it shoot? Like, yeah, you can have a crazy floating sight picture, but it's like if it's more centered down the bow, generally it's going to shoot better. If you get too far out of the middle of the bow, it might hold great, but then have some weird misses, depending on your cam pressure, if you put more pressure on the top versus the bottom cam. It's just so misaligned. So as far as that shake, like yeah, you can play for draw length, but you can also play for wall stiffness. So it's not so stiff to where it causes you to jerk out of the middle if you start pulling into it, but not so soft to where it just holds low when you start applying and really setting some tension in the bow. If it's too soft, then you're basically hyperextending your draw length a little bit to where it's just going to sag low with your mass weight on the bow. So you're finding a balance there. So But yeah, I really wish on that bow, on the concept, you could do the the stop in the middle. So there's a hard setting and a soft setting. If you could do like a middle setting,
Yeah, I
that'd be
think
cool.
you might be able to achieve something like that by removing and putting in those little rubber pieces.
I
I've
keep the
messed.
rubber in usually, but if you take them out, it definitely stiffens it up.
Yeah, and I've played with that a little bit, and I haven't played with it enough to really have any good answers. But it's something to mess with a little bit.
Yeah. Now, how do you set? This is another question, and I don't shoot a concept, obviously, but you might give me some feedback on this if you've tried it and what your thoughts are. But a lot of times when you're tightening that draw stop peg on the weights down, it can move up and down while you're tightening it. So usually it'll tighten down in the direction of the screw. Well, it doesn't mean that it's going to fit the cable flush at full draw. So do you tweak them at full draw or do you just tighten them down?
I will say I have noticed a little bit of a tolerance there. There is a little bit of slop when you're tightening it down.
Definitely the bottom cam, from what I've noticed. Like,
I have noticed that it doesn't, if this is your cable, it kind of hits like this if you're not in the center setting. That stop comes in and
yeah,
the top or the bottom hits first, and then as you press into it, the string will kind of bend around it and hit it flat. When you're in that center setting, which is I don't know if it's 70% let off on the mod that I have, it does hit it square. But I've never actually played with the slop itself to adjust that out. That's probably something I should try.
try it. Definitely. My biggest thing, and my biggest issue is not pulling into it and it getting weak. Usually it's like I'm already pulling into it and I creep up on it and then it suddenly has some form of pressure surge. It's like almost creeping, but not creeping. You'll see it in your pin maybe, especially with a higher power lens. So something to
Yeah.
play with, maybe.
Okay. Um, and then one other thing is I've been trying to not just visualize what my shot's going to be like, but also have like a almost like a tactile feeling in my mind, like what it's going to feel like to expand, and I don't know if that's the right word, but increase tension throughout the shot. One thing that I like to try to do is use the back half of my back to pull just as much as I push my front. I don't like to pull more than I push or push more than I pull. I try to expand kind of evenly. What's your thoughts on expansion like that?
Dude, that's great. Yeah. Um, what I try to teach people on that is like imagine like your front half is one piece and this back half is another piece and there's a pulley system kind of like on a bicycle how there's like two gears and there's a chain that connects them. These two sides work together on the same plane. They move at the same rate or the tension balancing tension the whole time. And then when the shot breaks, you get that nice crisp follow through on both sides. Usually if you see someone shoot a bad shot, you'll see like it's weak on one side or super strong or something like that. But yeah, I totally agree.
Okay. And then the other thing I like to actually visualize, like as I'm squeezing, is I'm trying to almost like apply pressure to my reticle, whether it's a pin or a ring or a dot, almost like apply pressure and slightly, almost like I'm pushing it right into the X, versus I try to push it into the X versus just move it up, down, left, right into the X. Now I'm not actually like leaning forward or anything like that, but that seems to help me center it up a little bit more. I picture instead of raising my pin up to get it back into the middle, I kind of like
Yeah,
push it up like that, if that makes any sense. If you're watching the video, you can kind of
absolutely.
see.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a big amateur mistake, I would say. So like a lot of guys, if they're holding low, they think to pull up with their arm. Well, when you're doing that, you're probably losing tension in the cams.
I
So the moment you put it up there and try to relax back into your natural hold, it's going to go back down. So you have to apply tension in the draw stops. That's what they're there for. So if you get a low hold, it's just because the tension you had when it was in the middle, now the tension in the cams is less. So you have to not necessarily pull. Like sometimes people they will be pulling something, whatever it may be, to try to pull into the bow, but you'll look at the draw stop, and the draw stop is not really tugging a little bit. So you have to literally tighten into those cams, you know. So that's what keeps it up, and then maintaining that tightness in the cams, maintains your hold, and then the release will fire in the middle of that maintenance. And then assuming that your draw length is not too short or too long, and that your stabilization is halfway decent, the arrow will clear the bow like a bullet out of a gun, and then the bow will start moving after the arrow has cleared. That's the biggest thing I've learned. If your draw length is really short, you're gonna have to throw a ton of stabilizer weight on to prevent the bow from moving prematurely. That's where you're shooting good, shooting good, shooting good, having a bunch of X's, and then all of a sudden you have a nine. Like some crazy big shot if it's too short. You're like putting so much extra tension on maybe one shot where it's literally a clearance issue with the arrow, or it's like moving it. So those are some of the things I've learned with that. But yeah, just shoot bows like guns. I mean, sight picture, trigger control. Those two things, I think you'll be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right on there. That makes a lot of sense. I think that key is like not losing tension in your shot. That's one thing that I've kind of been experimenting with is exactly how I apply tension so as not to lose any, if that makes sense.
Sure, maintaining
Yeah.
definitely, and
Yep.
maintain through the break of the release so
Yep.
the arrow clears. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the hard part. It's because like you're also the gun barrel too, so you have to like you kind of help assist holding the bow in the same spot while the arrow is clearing, or like pressing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I always like if I go back and play some of the videos from Lancaster last year, like my follow through was very short, I'd say. Still a good surprise shot, but I'd like break and drop the bow and throw my release back in the pouch really fast. And now I've kind of slowed that down a little bit and tried to, like like you said, keep that bow up until the arrow's totally gone. And kind of I like to, like I say, push the pin into the middle.
yeah, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot of playing around with it and experimenting with different things. Listen to podcasts like this, you can get a lot from it, and that's kind of where I've gotten a lot of information that I've learned in the past is from stuff like this, and talking to pros at events, and I think that's how a lot of people
100%.
do it.
Definitely. Like that whole wall stiffness thing, for example, like first time I was ever exposed to that was listening to Paige Pierce talk about it on the Bowtech, how the Reckoning at the time, the Gen 2 was so stiff, so she had a custom peg done. Kyle Douglas, um, he had the same thing. Um, he likes a really soft wall on his bows. I make fun of him because he has custom mods on his bow. It says like 70 pounds H 70% .ss. I'm like, Kyle, what does SS stand for? Super soft. So it's pretty
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah.
So
I ran my cams on this Hoyt on the soft, like I flipped those little mod stops around, and I had them in the soft setting for the last, I mean, several months, and then
is that where you're at now?
no, I just actually switched them back to the hard side just to try it, and then we'll see how it goes. After a couple weeks, I might end up switching them back, but
It's a hard one, man. I don't know how it would shoot, but you could try the bottom cams hard and the top cam soft if you got an extra foot, maybe.
yeah,
Or
and
just like even would be nice. Like if there was one in between, like the old, like
yes,
Venom.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
sure, I mean, somebody might even be able to 3D print something like that. I know there's a lot of,
machine it.
yeah, or you could machine it too. Um, but yeah, there's lots of options there. I think to play with it,
That'd be
and
super cool.
I mean you could probably even build it up with like I'm thinking like JB Weld like steel stick or
Be
something like
very
that.
careful if you do that. Um, Funny story. And then we'll hop off. When I shot that 32 up score, it was like the first time I ever broke 30 up. In known 45. I had a JB Weld stop on my Invicta at the time, and it was on my bottom cam, and it was like this big. It was a Bomer stop, so it was that big flat one, and then it had like holding weight, and then it was curved, like this big curved thing. So like it wasn't a really crazy like there's a lot of holding weight when you first hit the wall, but as you pulled into it, it decreased. So like it's like maybe 20.5 pounds in the beginning, and then it decreased to maybe 18 to 19 or something, like when I really started getting to my shoulders and stuff. And then like that position was nice, and then from there, shot went off. I don't know how I did it because that's a lot of holding weight. I don't prefer that on the Matthews, but on that bow, I shot it well that way.
So it actually, like, you pushed it off as you were pulling the bow back? Is that
No,
what?
no, like I kept it on, but the story is like I got one machined at a machine shop that was the right thickness I wanted, but it wasn't curved. I wish it was in hindsight because it was like really hard of a wall when it was just flat. And I had the stop and I put some pliers on it where the JB Weld was on top and it came off. I was
Okay.
like, oh, that's pretty easy to come off. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
scary.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to watch that. That's good to know. But yeah. So okay, wrapping it up here. How can people reach out to you? You got social media?
Yep. Yeah. So Ace Coleman archery is pretty much everything archery related. And then of course my coaching stuff is championarcheracademy.com. So if you want to check out any of the things we've got going on there. So
Yes. And then, you can find me, Launch One Mason Springer, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and get a hold of me there. But yeah. So, well, I appreciate your time, Ace. I learned a bunch of stuff. Covered, I think, some good topics. Um,
definitely
and I think it'll be good rolling into this season.
cool. Good luck this season.
Awesome. You too, Ace. We'll talk to you later.